What's up guys, it's Shana and welcome to another episode of the iherng podcast, and today this episode is brought to you by Dreamy. They sent me this Ultra L10 vacuum robot. It's amazing. So basically I divide cleaning into two types. One, active cleaning, where I use the vacuum. The other is the passive cleaning, where I just let it run when I'm not around the house or when the entire family is sleeping. So the vacuum does its thing. Not only it cleans, it mops, it also self-clean and heat up. Very nice. So go check out the link down below. Also use the promo code. And today we will answer a question from email. This is from the Miss Rera. Okay, that's the name lah, right? Hi iherng, thank you for reading this email. I'm a huge fan of yours and have been watching your videos religiously to prep myself into owning my first property in Malaysia. I'm currently in my mid-30s Malaysian, working in Singapore and ready to buy a house in KL. Initially, I wanted to buy a property for investment purposes, but I feel bad for my parents as they are staying at a rented house. Therefore, I decided to buy a house for them to stay permanently first. I started my house hunting journey recently with the focus of Bandar Damai Perdana, Alam Damai, Cheras area, as these are the places that my parents are familiar with. My initial budget was 800,000 for landed property, but the house that I can get at this value is very old and requires major renovation. So we explored condominiums, went for a few viewings, but my parents didn't like it. I just want them to stay comfortably, so we circled back to the landed house option. I increased my budget to $1 million and found some nicer landed properties, but I have concerns and I would like to seek your advice. I found a few landed houses around $1 million, renovated and only require minor touch-ups. But I researched the market value of other houses nearby and it's around 8 to 900,000 range. Of course, these other houses require major renovation. I also did some research on the rental rates. It's only 2,000 per month, which is less than 50% lower than my expected monthly loan payment. Is this normal? I realized only a condo at KL Prime area would achieve 80 to 85% of rental to loan payment rule. Does this rule only apply to condo and not landed house? My second question is, would you buy a renovated landed house at a premium or buy an old house and do my own renovation? Or continue searching for the ideal landed house? My parents are not in a hurry to move out from their rented house, but it would be nice if I can move them into a permanent home soon. Appreciate your kind advice. Thanks, Rera. So thank you very much, Rera, for sending in this email. And lately after the visit, I realized a lot of Malaysians that actually work in Singapore sending in a lot of emails. So very good. This channel is going international. Yes. So this is a story of trying to give back to the parents by getting them a house to live in while this audience hustles in a foreign land, which is like a drive away. But nevertheless, I really like this kind of email where they're just trying to give back to the family. So much love. And first of all, she pointed out a few pretty obvious things, but I just want to mention again, right? Like her budget of 800 to $1 million range for a landed property. If it's freehold, it's even worse. If within these prices, it's very challenging to get a house, technically a double story freehold terrace house within Klang Valley already. And I think maybe another 3 to 5 more years, everything is going to be above $1 million. The one that is only within that range will be old ones that requires a lot of renovation to make it more habitable. And the keyword here is habitable. It's not like, oh, this ID not nice, this ID ugly, not my kind of vibe. No. It's about old pipings, old materials, old furnishings, and it's sometimes borderline dangerous where the electrical wirings, the roofing, all those crucial items within a house structure all needs to be changed. That's why it's going to be very costly to get a landed house in the future. So literally it's going to be $1 million already within Klang Valley itself lah. Then the second thing to talk about, which is the renting stigma. Sometimes when we talk about renting, yes, I know the love for the parents will be to let them have a place of their own so they get to stay peacefully. But sometimes I wonder what's wrong with renting. The only setback to renting is when the owner tries to sell the house or suddenly sold the house and they want the tenants out of the place almost immediately because I sold the house. That's the only setback that I felt within this context. And if it's for a family, let's say if it's for my context, right, I have a kid that's around 2 years old and I have a lot of things. Suddenly when I'm building my career, trying to venture out to the world, then suddenly, hey, you need to move out. then when you move another house, that will kickstart a lot of trouble. I need to look for alternatives. I need to settle a new place before I can move out from the old place. So I need to cough out more deposits before I can collect back mine. Hopefully, the landlord will give me back. Then all my mailing addresses, all my correspondence on top of my work. And this is the challenging part if you are having children, is because the limitation of where I can leave them becomes around the kid. Where is his school, his daycare, his swimming lessons, and etc, right? So all those becomes a limitation to the location. Of course, I can find new ones, but relocating a home involves relocating everything else. Wow, no need to work already. And it's almost the same for elderlies. In this case, I assume they're not working anymore, so they are just passing time at their own pace, right? Go yam cha, go eat breakfast, go buy some vegetable, cook lunch, then go tai chi, go mahjong. I'm assuming, right? I'm only assuming based on the knowledge I have for my own relatives. So the only setback, if the landlord wants the unit back, they'll just need to pack their bags and go. So here they will lose their friends, their existing connections. And something about older neighborhoods is the vibe. I've thought a lot about this and I asked a lot of people about it. It's about neighbors knowing neighbors. It's about the community, such as the wanton mee auntie know where your children stay, how's the newborn like. Then the fish hawker will know last week you tried one of their fishes, how is it like. And these are the normal things within their lifestyle that they really enjoy. When you go to a kopitiam, you know the usual. Before you even sit down, your order is ready, like 2 toast with the egg and teh si ngalat. Those are the things that they really enjoy. Besides that, right, I don't think that renting is all that bad in terms of flexibility, in terms of value. So that leads to the first question. This audience here realized that ROI of owning a landed property, it's not as ideal. And yes, it is normal. Imagine if you buy a house at 1 million ringgit, right? Let's say you take 90% loan for the next 35 years, you're going to pay around 4,000-ish per month for the next 35 years. And a fully furnished unit is only around 2,000. It's barely half of the amount of the installment, and it's normal. And that's why I'm a very strong advocate for high-rise apartments, not because I prefer it, just that the returns of investment indicates it. Indirectly, that forms my theory where I actually explain a lot in the channel. I will get as many investments as I can where the rent can cover the installment, so I can go for more. Let's say for my first, second, third, fourth, fifth, all rental can cover the installment. But this absolutely depends on your preference or risk. And if this is sufficient, then when I am 38 to 45, I think that's the more ideal age of owning a real home, where my kid is at the final years of primary school, going into secondary, then he kind of needs space a little bit. Only I will invest in a landed property that acts like a home. Within this process, often the time the problem will be the fear of missing out. In this case, it's that the fear of cannot afford lah, where we are watching real life. The prices of property are just soaring high across time. Then 10 years from now, I don't think I can afford a landed property. Maybe that time a property of my preference will be around 2 million already. Yeah, tough. But what's wrong with renting it? And this is exactly my point. Like, instead of paying every month 5,000 to 6,000 just to own a landed property, right? I think the landed property is going to just serve me for maybe 10 to 15 years. Like, my kid is 12 when he moved in, then by 21 he is out already. Then he'll venture out, he will find his own place to stay already. So why have a landed property in that sense? And you think about, let's say in this case, a 2,000 rental, a year is only 24,000, 10 years is 240,000 only. But you are living in a $1 million house for 10 years. Yes, let's say the owner's appreciation is 30% across 10 years. So now it's 1.3 million when you move out. Did the owner make money? So let's think back, right? If you buy a house at 10 million, it doubles in the end of 30 years, right? But a lot of people, we have calculated before, if you take the loan of 1 million today, 90% loan, depending on the interest, after 30 years, right, you'll pay almost more than double of the house. So you approximately pay more than 2 million for a $1 million house. And if you sell at 2 million 30 years later, practically you didn't make money, but at least you get back whatever you put in lah, which is the concept of forced saving. But if the property didn't double, then somewhat you are paying for lodging lor. Then ultimately you have the certainty that you don't need to be chased out by the landlord. You have certainty of being in a very protected space securely. But again, if you can afford this format, you can afford a landed property, by all means go ahead. Good for you. But if for me, like I cannot afford to really live in a semi-D that I want, I would just rent. Because by looking at the numbers, it just makes more sense. I will need my money to work harder for me in other formats of investment. So let's say my 5 to 6 other apartments can pay me positive cash flow, meaning the rent after deducting the installments still have positive. So indirectly that will pay for my lodging fees as well. And after 10 years, my kid move out, I will also move out. I don't need a semi-D anymore because I don't want to serve the house. Then I'll rent somewhere else that is more convenient for me. Well, that's my case, but in this audience case, that's the phenomenon. If you expect high ROI for landed properties, right, the only accidental success I have for my investment is this landed property. It's a double-story terrace house within Gelang Patah area itself. So Gelang Patah is an area that is very close to the Tuas second link into Singapore. Because of the exchange rate, it's very exciting for a lot of Johorians to travel over to Singapore for work, and a lot of people do this daily. They travel through the custom daily, so they move out by 5 AM, travel into Singapore, then coming back at like 8 to 9 o'clock. So I bought this landed property there, and that serves the target audience of such. It's those very rare investment where the rental can pretty much cover the installment. Then the second question will be to get a renovated landed house at a premium or buy an old house then do your own renovation. The consideration to this will be the amount of money I have. And within this is like affordability. There's two forms of affordability. One is how much loan are you eligible for, and the other one will be how much capital you have within the bank to be disposed for renovation purposes. So let's say if my budget is 800,000, a lot of people take this as the amount that they can qualify for a loan. So let's say they can qualify for 800,000, I can get a house, but there's only half the process. A landed house easily will take 100 to 150,000 on a new house. So this is just adding on things. But if it's an old house, sometimes you need to subtract things, you need to destroy certain things, replace certain things before adding on your ID. So that's going to be way more costly. But to me here, the main point to take note will be the valuation of the property. So here maybe property A that is renovated, but it's above the market value. So let's say the area there is around 850,000, but this owner wants 950,000. Okay, I will go ask the agent like, what's the valuation that this property A can fetch? If the bank valuers provides a value of 950, which means that I can actually loan 950,000 out of this house, then only I will consider on it. But most of the time, a lot of banks do not recognize renovation work, because most of the time, at most, they will recognize the renovation cost for the next 3 years only. So it means that, okay, let's say my house is 800,000, I put in 300,000 in terms of renovation. Where I extend the front, I extend the back, I extend upwards, I cannot downwards lah. But I do all this. So does that necessarily mean my house can be sold at 1.1 million or it's worth 1.1 million? Not necessarily. It depends on whether the house structure extension is within the guidelines of the local authority, whether the extension plan is legal or not first. If it's legal, then this will be considered like at most for the next 3 years. After that, right, it's not considered by valuers anymore. But of course, it will still fetch certain amount compared to your neighbors who are not renovated at all. And renovation in the eye of the valuer most of the time is based on structural changes. For example, extension of kitchen, extension of front car porch, extension of the master bedroom. And these are examples for terrace houses, because the most you can do is front, back or upwards only ma. So for semi-Ds and bungalows, it's going to be way more tricky because it's almost free for all kind of renovation. So be mindful if you're going for those. So back to the case, if example A, property A can get valuation of 950, then I will consider. But if property B, which is a standard unit, 800,000, but the bank valuation is 850, which one would I go for then? Then this is going to be a debate debate of how much capital I have. If I go for the 850 one, I take 90% out of 850, but I only pay 800 to existing owner. I kind of have way more leeway to play around. And when we talk about renovation, right, again, there's a lot of aspect to this. Do you like the design of the renovation? Like, let's say I extend all the way, and if you have a typical contractor to kind of do the 中烧楼 to kind of do already, right? You kind of somewhat assume the taste is not for everybody. It's going to be those standard like yeah, it's not going to be very tastefully done kind of thing. Well, this strictly depends on personal preferences. And the second thing, if I were to give you the white canvas, are you able to do up everything or not? Because you are positioned in Singapore, and if you were to witness the whole works of it, right, it's going to take easily around 3 to 6 months time for a proper renovation to take place, especially in a landed situation. Third of all, is it worth doing? Which is besides the point of, do I want to go for a renovated or a standard unit? Let's say if you calculate everything, right, your budget is 1 million, yes. After you buy a 1 million, you need to put in, let's say, 200,000 for renovation. So upfront payment is around 18% upfront, which includes MOT, lawyer fee, legal fee, everything, right? In total, you need to cough out 380,000, and 8 months time, you get the house, and within 8 months time later, you renovate another, let's make it fast, 1 year. After spending 380,000 and wait for a year, finally, you get a house that can be lived in. Then every month you need to pay around 4,000 for the remaining years to come. Then when they are not around, right, what's the plan for the house? That also will play a role within this decision making process. Like, are you going to be settled within Singapore itself, or are you secretly planning to come back? That's a big question too, because if you are going to stay in Singapore and you secretly want to qualify for HDB in some period of time, that's going to affect this decision as well. So my opinion, right, like, I totally support the love that you have for your parents, right? If you do the math, 380,000 into Sing dollar is like 90,000 Sing only. It's not a lot of money, but within this amount of money, right, if you can settle the pain point of that renting a house thing for your parents, right, wouldn't it be more practical instead of owning a house that you don't know what to do with it later? Would it be possible to then speak to the landlord, hey, can we rent for 3 years? Then can we nego the price down a little bit more? Then I will get an agent or a lawyer to kind of draft a letter where, in case any moment of time you want to sell the property, can you ask me first whether I want or not? So I kind of know whether is he going to sell the house, so I can prepare for the worst. And that's going to be way more affordable than 380,000 and every month 4,000 for the rest of your life. This is going to be way easier to do. Then you have way more leeway to actually get an investment property where the rental can cover the installment, maybe surplus if you do it right, if you target the right property, and that can kind of support your parents also. So in conclusion, Rera, this will be my suggestion. First is to do one, which is to speak to the landlord and do these necessary arrangements. Not only you can up the certainty, maybe there's an opportunity to actually reduce down the rent, which the old people will be very, very happy. Then that opens up the opportunity for you to make investment on property that will actually bring you higher ROI. Right? So that's option one. If you really still want to go for the landed properties, between a renovated one or a standard units, it all depends on the capital I have versus my plans on the capital itself and the valuation of it. And this is way more technical because we are still talking about landed properties, and the main characteristic of landed property is it's one and only. So maybe the one that you really like has this facing, especially for old people, if you're more sensitive to things, this one is south facing, north or whatsoever. It's one and only. So if they really like something, right, it all boils down to the amount of capital you have versus how much you want to contribute to your parents. But if the property is really settled at $1 million plus the 200,000 renovation fee, it's going to be 380,000 upfront. A year later, then only your parents will move in. And something to discuss about is what's the plan for the property after they are not around. To me, disposing a property is also a process to be considered. Later, if you're applying for a HDB, if you want to be a Singaporean, I am not too sure. So that is something that needs to be within this thought process as well. But personally, I would prefer to go through option 1 first, because that is way more fluid, way more flexible, and they get to stay where they are. Based on my own parents, not all old folks likes to move houses. Suddenly when I'm so comfortable in this house already. You ask me to move, I need to get used to the new location, the new people, the new market. Leceh lah, leceh. And that's my conclusion, and I hope this helps. Thank you very much again for writing in. And for those who still have any questions regarding real estate, do just email me at taniherng@gmail.com, or you can just DM me on Instagram, iherng. And I will see you on the next one. Ciao.